Apologies for my headshot instead of me. For some reason, my laptop's camera is not cooperating today, but thankfully Brian's going to be doing most of the talking. But we can just get started. Welcome to the new normal. This is BeBop Technologies weekly webinar series. I'm John Conroy. I'm our VP of Communications and Market Development. And with me today is the amazing Brian Bedell, who is our customer success specialist. And Brian, I think today you're going to talk about, you've actually got a post that we link to on the website and that is on our support site and so forth with best practices and tips and tricks for getting the most out of using BeBop, right? And I thought it was super, and I love that it's kind of a living document that you're updating as new customers come on, as new workflows come on, as we put up new features, as things constantly improve. You're adding to it in order to make sure that everybody who's using BeBop knows kind of the best way to use it or the best way to maximize it. And I was thinking today it'd be awesome if you kind of walked us through some of that. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, it's a best practices for working remotely, and it came about because of all of the safer at home, shelter at home, work from home environment that we've all been kind of thrown into. And having had a lot of experience working remotely throughout most of my career, I was able to translate some of the information that I had, as well as some of the things that I've learned since working at BeBop with a lot of customers, and try to basically just set everyone up for success. And that's really what my role is here in the BeBop family, is to help the creatives transition into this cloud-based collaboration. And so the article was intended just to give a few of the items that are critically important to give you the best chance of success. And so what we wanted to cover today was kind of a top 10 list that was based off of that article, but we get a little more granular and talk about some other things as well. So I think we're just going to go kind of kick right into it. I'm going to be sharing my screen off and on while we're going throughout this presentation or this conversation. If you guys have any questions, put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and me or one of my teammates will get to those. We do like this to be incredibly interactive. So let's start it off with the first thing. I guess what I can do is I can just share my screen, and we'll switch right over to excuse me, to that article. And so this is the best practices for working remotely article. You can find this on our support website, support.beboptechnology.com. And this is a really valuable tool as part of the BeBop family. And even if you're not a BeBop customer or not using our platform, using our support site, we do have a lot of information just for working remotely and how to use cloud-based collaboration tools. So we do talk about, we start off talking about some system requirements and whatnot. But the one thing that I always like to talk about is it comes with our minimum system requirements of 20 megabits per second of a stable connection. And the 20 megabits per second is pretty small, and that's based on the PC over IP technology we use and screen resolution. But it's the stable part that is really the most important. And so, I'd say the number 10 on our list would be plugging in your computer with Ethernet cable as opposed to utilizing Wi-Fi. And when you're working in this environment, when you're working in the cloud, you have to remember that your connection to the network and eventually to the virtual machine, it basically becomes your lifeline to your paycheck. So you really want to do everything you can to prioritize that. So the first thing that you can do is plug it in via Ethernet cable. And that gives you a much more stable connection. Wi-Fi has a tendency to lose packets. There's more interference, things from your microwave down to a remote control for your PlayStation, your Xbox. A lot of things operate on the 2.4 gigahertz channel that can cause interruption. Or even if you're on the 5 gigahertz channel of your Wi-Fi, you can still have some network quality loss. So the first thing that I like to talk about is plugging in your computer that's going to be connecting, or your Zero client that's connecting to your VM. The second thing, or the number 9 of our list, is going to be prioritizing, again, your internet connection by removing any distractions that are coming up. So, you know, things that are running on your computer that you may not feel are active are things that are in fact hitting the internet, even if they're just dialing home to see if there's an update. They send off a command, hey, is there any updates? No, there's not. Okay, thanks. And that's it. But that little bit of interference can impair your connection to your VM. And sometimes we'll see this as a kind of a soft focus on playback or even digital tears or pixelization. And so that's something that we really want to try to minimize. So things like Dropbox Sync, Spotify, having a bunch of tabs open in Google Chrome, even if you just have a website up that looks like it's stagnant, there's probably ad trackers and things going on in the back end that are causing some just little bits of network interference. So one of the things I do like to talk about, this leads us to number 8, is the way that we adapt in the cloud. And being in the cloud offers so many valuable resources to improve our efficiency and workflows. And so one of the things I want to show you here is within the BeBop VM, I'm currently running a virtual machine. And so I have my timeline here in Premiere. And one of the things I want to do is I want to turn on this dropped frame indicator. And to get to that, you go to your settings wrench, and about halfway down on the program monitor, you'll see show drop frame indicator. And when you turn that on, that's going to put this little green dot there that during playback, it's going to stay green as long as there are no dropped frames. Now, this is a really valuable tool if you are on a hardware solution, because it basically tells you whether or not your computer, your hardware is able to process all of the footage that you're putting in, or even to decode it if you're using a compressed codec. And so it's really valuable on a hardware solution. Now, with the BeBop workstations, these are really overpowered computers. They're somewhere around a 16-core processor with 120 gigs of RAM and an 8 gigabyte or 16 gigabyte video card. So these are really powerful systems. So if we see something that doesn't quite look right, if we see pixelization or stuttering, what looks like dropped frames, but that green dot is still green, then that means it's actually a problem with our network. So we can use this tool within Premiere to actually gauge the quality of service on our network. And so if we are getting, that is starting to turn yellow or red, then we know it's a problem that with the footage, and we need to look at our workflow at that point. But if it's staying green, but things are getting pixelated or soft focused, then we need to look at our network and how we can optimize that. And there are really three tiers of your network connection to this virtual machine. There's what's happening on your local computer if you're using the software client. Then there's what's happening on your actual network within your house if you're using the if you're on a network with multiple users, that can cause interference. And so there's things you can do like changing your router priority designation so that your computer has a little more priority. And you can also but then we have to, the third layer of that is the public internet. Now that we've all been forced onto the public internet, we can't really control what happens between our house and the data center. So what we do want to look at is how we can monitor and adapt our workflows for things that we can't control. So the fourth thing that I want to talk about is kind of how we can optimize that some more. So normally we have all kinds of different communication protocols. And so we have our workstation that we're running, and we want to prioritize that workstation and whatever limited connection we have at our house or our wherever we're working from. We want to prioritize the processing power and the network connection there. So we want to move anything, like let's say you're using Slack or Google Hangouts. It's better to actually move that stuff into the workstation. So here I've got I have Google Hangouts connected within my virtual machine. And so it's not drawing on my home network, it's actually using the data center's connection. So whether you're using Slack or Teams or anything that you're using for that quick communication, or even your email, it's better to run that in the VM through a web browser as opposed to have it running on your actual operating system. Just like Spotify and things like that, it can slow down that connection just having those little text messages come in and whatnot. So it's always better to use the web-based apps on the VM than it is to use it on your local computer. So let's say that we can't control some of those things that are happening on the public network, and we're just kind of stuck with that, right? There's not a lot we can do. We can't go around tell all of our neighbors to stop using the internet, or even half of our town or city or wherever, however big it is. So we need to look at how we can adapt while being in the actual environment. And so a couple of things we can do is starting off with understanding the technology that we're utilizing. So this virtual machine that's running in the data center is beaming back all of the pixels that are changing from that display. So right now I'm using a quad HD monitor. So it's 2560 by 1440. So my network requirement is about 30 megabits per second. And that's a pretty low threshold to have. But let's say that there's interference on my network. I do have other people in my house that are currently using the internet. I do have neighbors, obviously, that are doing things. So if I was experiencing some playback issues, if things looked soft or I was getting some stuttering, then a couple of things I can do is look at how my workflow is affecting my network requirements. So right now I have these telemetry scopes up and going, which is very pretty to look at, but doesn't really serve a purpose for the work I'm doing right now as I decide how I want to cut something into this timeline. So first thing I can do is I can either close that panel or even just switch it to something that isn't moving. Now that I've switched it to my effects controls panel, there's no need for those pixels to update. So it's now limiting that connection or expanding what is possible to be sent. And it can prioritize just the pixels that are over there on my program monitor. The same thing could be said with just resizing. So if I can adapt my workflow to resize my program monitor to something that's maybe a little smaller, a small change in that can make a really big difference in the actual network bandwidth that needs to come through. So those small changes where we can be agile and adapt our workflows can drastically improve the performance of these virtual machines going through the PC over IP. So those are a couple of things quickly there. And one of the things I like to talk about when we're talking about optimizing our workflows on these cloud machines is being agile. And so we do have another article that that I like to show to creatives. And let me just find that real quick. And it's another best practices, and it's being an agile creative. One of the really powerful things about working on the BeBop platform is that we're not locked into a single edit bay. We can access these workstations from everywhere, and we can even access multiple workstations. So currently I'm logged into this particular workstation, and if I wanted to, I could launch a second workstation. And so while that one's loading up, after this one's loaded up, I could jump back and forth between those two. So let's say I have a really big render that I need to do. But in the meantime, that deadline is just continuing to get closer and closer. So what I need to do is I need to render something out in Premiere, and then I need to hop into After Effects on another workstation. And this was one of the things that I found really valuable as I was working with different networks and creative agencies, is a lot of time I'd work in the night shift. And so I would have all of these different edit bays available to me, and I could run around and start different processes on different computers because nobody was using them. And that's not something that most daytime editors have access to. But with the scalability of the cloud environment, that's something that you can do. Now, that's one really cool part, is just understanding that agility, that you can create different processes on different virtual machines. But one of the things to think about with that is, how does it feel to you? Each one of these workstations is its own computer that comes with its own secure Windows profile for you. But when you do that, it doesn't carry over all of your settings that you'll need. So in order to truly be agile here, we're going to want to copy over some of the things that we need, such as keyboard shortcuts or media encoder presets. And those are things that we're going to want to copy those over from the C drive, which is, again, a secured user profile. So you won't be able to access it from another computer, and neither will any of the other people that log into that workstation. And so what we'll do is we'll want to go into our C drive to grab any of those files that we need. and they'll be here in your, in your documents and then Adobe. And these are pretty easy files to find. If you don't know where they are, you can just do a quick Google search. But you'll want to grab your keyboard shortcuts, and you're going to want to back them up onto the shared storage. So this folder right here is my own user folder within the shared storage, and I can access that from anywhere. Alternatively, I could also keep a backup in a cloud-based storage system like this. So I have my keyboard shortcuts on my Google Drive as well. So if I move to any computer that isn't air-gapped, that I have access to the network, I can always grab my keyboard shortcuts and drag it down into my computer. And so that's really what this article is talking about, is being agile so that you can move from one place to the other. And sometimes this would happen on site too, where you go into work somewhere and the editor that was on the shift before you just isn't done, and they have to finish their work. And it can really be a struggle to try to move to another edit bay and start your shift if you haven't protected yourself by keeping your keyboard shortcuts on a thumb drive or something. So it all comes down to comfort level and continuing to be agile in that way. So with that agility as well comes the difference for a lot of us Mac users going into the Windows environment. And so here at BeBop, we've tried to do things to help you out with that, including creating a script that ports over your command key into a control key. There's a really long history as to why Windows and Mac environments handle the keyboards differently, including the number pad and the enter and return carriage lines. There's a whole history there that's a lot of craziness. But one of the things that I found as I was moving around from a lot of different productions was that one week I may be working on Media Composer, and then the next week I was working on Premiere, and then the next week I was working in Final Cut. And all of them have specific keyboard defaults. And so over time, my keyboard started morphing into one singular keyboard setup so that I could get up and get moving quickly on my edits. And then once I started working in BeBop more, because I was now working in the Windows environment even more than I was before, I started to realize that there was really no reason for me to be forcing my command shortcuts into the Windows environment. Although we're used to it, retraining that tool is really not difficult. So a lot of my keyboard shortcuts started moving over to something that was more generic between a Mac and a PC. So instead of thinking of it as I'm always on Mac, I'm a dedicated Mac fan, well, this is an opportunity for you to expand your craft. And that's really one of the big differences is to think about is that the craft that you have is not something that's limited by the tools that you have. The tools can be limiting, but your craft is not. And so it's always easier to adapt your craft to utilize the tool correctly than it is to try to force your craft onto a tool that can't do what you want it to do. And so with the keyboard shortcuts, that would be my number, the number 4 tip, is to adapt your keyboard so that it just makes it easier for you. And with that agility, that adaptation comes, let's see, this is number 3, I guess, which is understanding the cloud environment and what that entails. So even though these are powerful systems, even though they can handle pretty much anything you throw at them, including 4K Blackmagic RAW with Lumetri LUTs, it's wonderful to think about all that power, but oftentimes it comes down to why. Why would you want to be editing in 4K RAW when you could just create a proxy workflow and edit much faster? Now, in today's ever-changing digital landscape, and especially with a lot of our content coming in from various sources that we don't have as much control over, we are constantly battling with codecs and improvements and how we work with those within the environment. And it really does, it comes down to kind of understanding your situation. If you are in a situation where you have to take on things like H.264, H.265 footage, and you have to get that footage out within 30 minutes, an hour, then sure, you're gonna have to just white knuckle it and get through that. But if you don't have that immediate turnaround, it really behooves you to re-encode that footage into a more edit-friendly format. Because H.264 and H.265 is an amazing codec for transport and delivery, but it is not designed to be an edit codec. So whenever you force Premiere or After Effects or DaVinci or any of these NLEs to decode on the fly that footage, it's going to slow down your creative process. And so it's always better just to transcode, or even if you can, it's a really simple thing to have someone switch their iPhone from H.265 to H.264. And that's going to give you a much better editing experience there as well. In addition, there's obviously cost savings for storage. So if you're planning on editing, Blackmagic RAW or Red RAW, there is a cost associated with that in the cloud. Cloud storage is really expensive. And one of the valuable parts of having cloud storage or having a BeBop deployment is you can utilize the tiered storage. So you prioritize your workload on the fast SSD storage that comes with your BeBop workstation. And when you're done with that project, you archive off into the tiered storage. And this is similar to what we do on Prim most of the time, where we have an LTO or some type of archival hard drives. So we want to kind of take that same thing into account, but using a format that makes your life easier on your timeline is going to give you a much better experience when working in the cloud. And even though your hardware solution may be able to chug through that H.265, what your hardware solution can't do is be accessible anywhere you want around the world at any time. And that's one of those valuable things that you have to compare. Which is better? Do you want to edit the H.265 being limited into a single office somewhere, or do you want to have the flexibility of being able to cut from wherever you are? And that's it's a discussion to be had about your workflows. The number 2 item, and I feel like this is a really overlooked item a lot of times, is the BeBop OTS. This is our review and approve technology. It's right here in the front panel of the session dashboard. And what's really amazing about this is that there's all kinds of video conferencing tools. There's all kinds of ways of sharing your screen. But what's really, really great about this is that the BeBop OTS is, from my experience, the most true frame accurate screen sharing that I've been able to do. And so when you're working on those promos, when you're working on those super frame accurate, really important cuts, and you need your client to approve it or your producer to approve it, you can set up this OTS session, and it gives you a 30 frame per second full real-time playback with 2-way audio. And what that allows you to do is just do very quick review and approve sessions, and you can play back directly from the timeline. Now, this saves a ton of time because you don't have to render out a timecode burn of whatever you're playing. You just hit play and you let it go, and you sit there and you talk about it. And you can even switch from a full screen playback of the timeline to a full monitor view of the whole desktop. And then you can actually collaborate in real time. And that's a really powerful tool because you don't have to wait on whether or not the person has received that QuickTime, found the time to watch it, write down the notes to send it back to you. It's all immediate, and it's in full frame playback at real time. So it's a really, really valuable tool that I think a lot of times goes overlooked because we just think about the creative process and we're used to our older workflows. So the last thing, and this is, I say, the number 1 of the top 10 ways to improve your BeBop experience, is to reach out to us. And one of the reasons that I feel so fortunate to be able to work with the team here at BeBop is because we're in the front lines of shaping the future of post-production and computing in general. But even since the time that I've been here, where I've been kind of this liaison between the editors and the graphic artists and the creatives, talking to the engineers and the programmers as we develop this platform, it's been amazing to be able to translate some of those desires that we've always felt that we needed. And not just within the BeBop team, but also with our partners. We have relationships throughout the post-production industry, and we have an opportunity to really talk to these people that are making decisions about what the future of post is going to look like. And so being on the ground floor of that is super important. And all of us here at BeBop are first and foremost creatives. We all come from the creative side throughout different aspects of the industry. and the platform was created with that in mind. We wanted to fill those holes that weren't just weren't being done in other regards. So we were able to bring together a very concise package that is a managed platform to give you the best experience while working in the cloud and collaborating securely with other creatives and your producers to get content out quickly and at scale, and to scale it. And there's so many benefits to it. And I just feel so honored to be part of this team and be able to help shape the future of that. And as my number one tip, you are too. You're able to do that as well. Just reach out to us. You can send us an email at support@beboptechnology.com. We are completely open to accepting feature requests. Tell us where things are breaking down in your workflow, and we can either tell you if we have a solution for it or try to develop a solution for it. It's a very exciting time to be in this industry and have this opportunity to really kind of look at all of the technology that's available to help build a better, more concise, efficient workflow in post-production. And it's a really exciting thing. So please reach out to us here at BeBop. Let us know what improvements you'd like to see or what you could help you with your workflows deliver in the cloud. And with that, I'm going to turn it over for any questions that have popped up, or John, if you have anything you'd like to say.
Yeah. Well, first off, that was amazing. And I love looking at the written version of it, but I especially love getting the live walkthrough that you did. I also realized that I think this might be one of the first times that we've showcased our support page on one of our webinars, and we really, to your point, we not only take that seriously, but it's an incredibly robust source of resources for our customers. And I think really for me, one of the things that you touched on that I really want to underscore is, the idea of feature requests or product improvements or whatever it is. Like, there's a wealth of riches with BeBop in many ways. One of them is that our engineering team is just downright brilliant and are frequently creating products that are solving problems that a lot of our customers don't realize they have yet or are about to have. And a big part of why we're able to do that is to what your point was about the fact that all of us come out of the creative industry in some way, shape, or form, and with different areas of expertise, but all of us, we're not a software company based elsewhere who decided, oh, we're going to develop solutions for the entertainment industry. We all came out of the entertainment industry. We happen to have a ton of expertise in technology. And, we were able to put together the kind of tools that the industry can use. And we know that because we used to do the jobs that our customers do. But to the point about feature suggestions and, can we do this, or we'd love to be able to do that. A large amount of what we offer was born out of discussions with our customers. And, we're so focused on frequently talking about enabling collaboration for creatives in the industry and for, our customer base, and finding ways so that editors and producers and visual effects artists and post supervisors and everybody, data wranglers, can work together more and collaborate more efficiently. And I don't think many people realize that collaboration also extends to us. And that's really the kind of relationship we tend to have with the folks that are working with us, is very collaborative, and we listen to them. And we really take to heart what our customers are asking for, because at the end of the day, that's the finger that is on the pulse, right? Is what people are recognizing they would love to be able to do now that they know that they can do this. So I love that we were able to kind of wrap up on that. And I think we can wrap up. So Brian, thank you again. This was fantastic. Thank you, audience. We do this every week at this point, and you can tune in next week for another edition of The New Normal. I'm John Conroy, signing off for Brian Bedell. Thanks for joining us.